Recording live from the Northeast Georgia Business Radio X studio, this is Northeast Georgia Business Radio. Welcome, folks. Welcome back to Northeast Georgia Business Radio. I'm your host, Tom Sheldon. We are recording live from the beautiful, I can't say that enough, the beautiful Empower College and Career Center of Jackson County. A big shout out to my good buddy Mike Salmon. He's in the back running the board. He's waving to us. And he does that. He does that. Mike, we love you. Keep up the, well, just whatever, yeah. With me today, hey, I have a great guest. I always have a great guest. But with me today is Mr. Mark Valentine. Mark Valentine Financial Coaching. Mark, how in the world are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Tom. It's exciting to be here. Thanks for welcoming me in today.
Well, you're always welcome here. We're glad to have you. What do you think of the studio, the new studio?
I think it's pretty fancy. You got more buttons than you know what to do with over there. Pretty high tech.
We use like 4 of them. we don't even know what half of them do.
Well, maybe you'll learn.
We try. Mark, welcome. You are a financial coach.
That's right. I went through some training last year with the Dave Ramsey program. Many folks are very familiar with his radio program and all the efforts that he's put forth over the years. And he has a special training program for folks that want to learn how to become a coach. And it was well worth it. I learned a lot and wrapped that up in about December of this past year.
Nice. Congratulations.
Thank
now,
you.
You are a certified coach.
That's right. It's technically called a Certified Master Financial Coach.
Right. I'm with you on that. I think almost everyone knows who Dave Ramsey is by now. But I want to learn a little bit about the man, Mark Valentine. How in the world did you get to Jackson County?
Well, I moved here.
How'd you get to this point? Let's put that way.
Actually, quite a long time ago. The year was 2000, right at the turn of the century. And I moved here for my job. My career in my last life was shopping center management.
Oh, wow.
And I worked with the Tanger outlets. I came here to work for Tanger.
Gotcha.
And I worked for Tanger for over 20 years and then retired just a little over, 2 years almost now.
You enjoying retirement?
Oh, absolutely.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. No. Now you're a coach.
Now I'm doing all kinds of stuff, really.
So
coaching is one of my endeavors that I'm really passionate about.
Awesome. So what in the world is financial coaching? People come to you with their problems?
Well,
that's oversimplifying, I'm sure.
It is. It's not a common term. Most folks have never really heard of it. Let's just start with the word coaching.
Right.
Everybody's familiar with that, starting in Little League.
Oh, yeah.
High school football, whatever it might be, all the way up to the pros. Coaching in sports is normal. Of course, the idea of coaching, and the coach needs to tailor his or her approach based on the skill level of the person involved. In Little League, if a young boy has never thrown a baseball, you have to start at a different frame of reference than right. Someone that's actually quite accomplished. And the same idea really applies in financial coaching. There's a lot of folks that don't necessarily have the skill level to make a budget or to manage their money. They don't think about it that much. And frankly, our schools don't really go out of their way to teach those skills. They learn how to add and subtract, which is important.
Oh, yeah.
But the application in a real world situation of actually managing your income and expenses can be a little bit more involved. But by the same token, there are people that have the skills, but for other reasons, still have trouble
sure.
making ends meet. There's an alarming percentage of I think I've got it here, 63 to 68%, depending on the survey you look at, of households that are living paycheck to paycheck and in a sense struggling a bit, and that's not good for anyone. And so there's all different applications where financial coaching can help individuals and couples on a continuum level of from low to high, depending on the skill level.
Is there a rule of thumb how many months, days, weeks of reserves you hope to have or should have as far as your bills go? Is there any rules of thumb about that?
Well, Dave Ramsey has certainly in his plan and his strategy. At some point, You want to get to a point where you have anywhere from 3 to 6 months of living expenses in what he calls a fully funded emergency fund. So
Say that again.
3 to 6 months of expenses
Right.
put aside in what he calls a fully funded emergency fund.
Fully funded.
That's
okay.
what he
fully
calls it.
funded. I got you.
All
I
right.
got you.
Not to be confused, his very first step in his what he calls his baby step plan. The first step is a short-term emergency fund of just $1,000, and so that's just different though from the fully funded emergency fund.
I would imagine. Wow, if you can get by on $1,000 for the fully funded.
Well, for someone that's
That
just
is
starting
awesome.
out, it's good to have a reachable plan so that you at least have some emergency funds set aside
Right,
for whatever might come up.
I got you. So what is? I've seen Dave Ramsey on TV and stuff. What makes him so unique, or the plan? Maybe not Dave himself. What makes his plan? I guess what drew you to Dave Ramsey's plan? Why is it so unique? Why is that special?
Well, I'm going to start just sharing some of my own experiences, and I'm not, I'm not the smartest guy on the block, but I'm not the dumbest either. But in my own life, I went through and somehow managed to survive without really having a clear strategy on how to manage my finances. And I had 4 kids. I was a single dad, and somehow it's so easy just to get caught up in life.
Oh,
it
does.
happens so fast.
Life happens.
And before you know it, heck, I'm retired, and somehow I managed.
Right.
But not. It was more in spite of myself than really having what I would call a good plan or an outline to get there. I was very fortunate in that regard. But that's the situation most folks find themselves in. It's a challenge to have the focus, and as well as to be able to apply the knowledge needed to sort of set yourself up so that your money can work for you rather than against you.
Exactly.
That's really what it comes down to.
Well, that's not something they teach in school.
It is not. It absolutely isn't. Now, I know some school districts try to have maybe a seminar for the kids
Right.
before they're getting ready to graduate. And depending on whether they're there that day, it's a hit or miss kind of thing.
Do you do anything like that?
Not yet, but I'm going to be looking into it.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, we are at a school.
Sure.
This Empower Center is preparing young adults, or soon to be young adults,
Sure.
for the future, and it goes beyond the adding and subtracting that you talked about.
Right.
You never know.
But to get back to your question
Yes, I'm
about
sorry,
what
sorry.
makes that special,
Dave and his goal,
Well-
his plan rather.
his plan is not. His concepts are not always the right mathematical answer. So if you're dealing with an accountant or a financial whiz, they'll say, well, that's not the way to do this.
Sure.
He approaches it from a psychological standpoint. What's in the psyche of most folks just trying to get this done and get this accomplished? And most folks, if you don't realize some wins or some successes shortly on, it's so easy to get frustrated, depressed, and give up.
Yeah.
And that's not the best scenario. So he has outlined what he calls the 7 baby steps, and they're designed so that they're achievable in small steps. And if you work the plan the way he designs it, it can be very successful. In fact, hundreds of thousands of people, if you ever listen to his radio show, have used the program very successfully, or the strategy. And so it really comes down to bite-sized pieces that people can chew on and find success and achieve encouragement to keep them going so that they can ultimately reach their long-term goals.
Gotcha. So it's a slow, steady process.
Right. There's nothing easy about this whole thing.
No. No.
And frankly, the crunching numbers is the easy part.
Right.
The hard part is implementing and sticking with a plan over time, and that's where a coach can become the most helpful, providing the encouragement needed, providing hope, injecting the kind of energy into the situation that is needed to keep folks focused and energized so that they can stick with it and maintain a focus on what each individual person's why is. Everyone's got to have a why in terms of why do they really want to achieve financial peace.
Right.
And if they don't have a why, then it's really hard. It's that much harder because there's nothing really drawing them or forcing them to keep going. But if someone has a real why, a real reason for getting to their goals, then it becomes the coach's job just to keep them on focus, keep them focused and on track of what those are.
Gotcha. You keep them disciplined more or less.
Absolutely.
I can imagine it's kind of hard to teach somebody.
Well, again, I think
Almost a lifestyle change.
Well, it absolutely is. And that's, everyone, financial coaching isn't perfect for everyone.
I was about to ask you, is it for just, it can't be cookie cutter. We're all individuals.
Well, it's not. Every situation is different, but the bottom line is folks have to want it. If they don't want it,
That's probably the first step.
there's nothing a coach can really do.
Right.
Encouragement and maintaining focus can only go so far. But as I said, the crunching numbers is the easy part. The hard part is changing your way of thinking. It's almost like a paradigm shift in the way you look at money, the way you look at credit.
Right.
And if you can get over that hump and achieve that, then you have a much better possibility for success. But that's a big jump, and a lot of folks aren't able and willing to get there.
Right.
Some folks just have to reach the point of total frustration and say, okay, I have just totally had it, and I've got to make a change now. And when they get to that point, they're much more suitable or apt to be in a position to make the changes necessary. Are you willing to live below your means? And oftentimes that's a tough thing.
Sure.
That's a tough decision for folks to make.
It may be hard for them to realize they're living way above their means.
Absolutely. Wow. No question about that.
I got you. Are there common mistakes that you see?
Well, I think
Too much, maybe, I don't know. I don't want to put words in your mouth. Living for the moment, living for today.
Well, let me share a story with you. My daughter, Erin, she was, I want to say maybe a couple months from graduating high school. And she came home one day and she said, Dad, I've got to get a credit card. What do I need to do to sign up for a credit card? And, of course, I was so shocked and stunned that my high school teenager
My little girl doesn't need a credit
came
card.
home and put that question to me. And I said, what on earth are you talking about? Where are you hearing this? And it's what all the kids were talking about at school. It just seemed to be the normal conversation of, if you're going to be successful, you have to establish credit. You have to have a good credit rating. And it's better to get started on it early. And we live in a world and a culture that is really upside down in that regard. Now, if we take a step back and we look at all the big banks, and you go down to downtown Atlanta, and the biggest buildings are the biggest banks, and you wonder why? Because they're making a fortune on credit card debt and other forms of areas, and they have it down to a science. They have manipulated and trained our culture to make everyone think that this is normal, that going into debt is a normal and healthy thing, and the whole notion that, hey, I can have it now and pay it later. I want it now, and there's no reason why I can't do that. Well, that's not necessarily the way it has to be. If individuals are willing to look at things from a whole different perspective and just say debt is bad or debt is dumb, especially the younger you are, the greater chance that you'll never get caught up or get sucked into this world of just surviving just to pay the banks your finance charges.
That's exactly what it is. It turns into survival.
Absolutely. And that's the whole notion of living paycheck to paycheck is, in most cases, most of what you're paying out is going to those credit cards, and a vast percentage of that is just paying down on the finance charges.
Right.
And that's a never-ending cycle. Well, I shouldn't say never-ending, because you can get out of it. That's what we're here to do.
It takes more discipline.
But it takes a big effort and determination and just the desire to get there.
No, I'm with you on that. So other than your daughter wanting a credit card, why in the world are you doing this? You've retired. You had a successful career. And I know you well enough to know you don't get bored. You always got something. Why are you doing this?
Yeah, I am on the run all the time.
You are on the run all the time.
And that's good. I just decided, on one hand, I don't want any downtime in retirement. I have all this time to do something with.
Sounds like you got your wish, my friend.
Yeah, I definitely do. I think a couple of the things were at play here is number one, I don't know where I even saw it, but it just caught my attention when I saw about this Dave Ramsey stuff. Now, I will tell you that a couple of years ago, my oldest son brought home a book there was a Dave Ramsey book, and he shared it with everyone in the family because he was kind of excited about it. So that was my first introduction to Dave Ramsey and his principles. But I didn't really, I read it, but I didn't really, I was too busy with life and work and raising the kids that I didn't really get too deep into it. But then when I saw this again after retiring, it caught my attention, and I thought, I think about the mistakes I've made financially, and even though it's all worked out okay, I could have been so much farther ahead if I would have had a brain, so to speak, or if I had some of these principles. It'd be really cool to help people know some of the things that I know now that I didn't know when I was 20 or 30 years old. What a difference I thought that could make. And I started with, my own kids, trying to share some of these ideas there. And, I'm a church-going fella. I go to church, and I think about, what's really important in life. And, God gives us this life, and He wants us to have abundant life. And I look at that, and I think, well, what prevents us from achieving that? And one of the things is, what keeps us from having that can easily be, even though having an abundant life has nothing to do with money, money can be an extreme encumbrance or impediment to achieving that, to achieving a relationship with God that helps you to have that kind of life that you want. And I look at that, if you have anxiety and you have frustration from finances, number one, that's the number one cause of divorce.
Oh, yeah.
And it certainly is an impediment from having a relationship with God. And on that level, I just become very passionate about helping folks try to eliminate that as an obstacle.
I got you.
Because it is literally a matter of life and death if you think of it in terms of eternity.
Well, in those terms, and quite literally in life in general, there have been people who have ended their lives.
No question.
Just based on financial situations.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Okay, we're not ending on depressing notes.
No, the great part about it is there is hope. I mean, you can, if you just determine that you need to make a change and you're open to change and want to absorb the opportunity and the ideas that are out there, we can help. I mean, I can certainly help. We can make things happen so that you can turn things around. I can't guarantee it's ever going to be easy. It usually isn't, but the investment of your whole person into turning things around is so worth it in the long run for a variety of reasons. It really is.
Gotcha. All right, now what did we miss? You got all kinds of notes and facts over there. What did we miss?
Well, I mean, I did. I had a couple other statistics. I shared you the paycheck to paycheck one. Another one, depending on which survey you look at, 32 to 40% of American households say they couldn't handle a $400 emergency fund, or emergency expense. I'm sorry,
$400.
Right. Ooh. And now you might think, well, 32% is not bad, but
that's a third.
I look at it as that's bad.
That's
that's the only way to handle it is to go farther into debt,
right?
And that's where the spiral continues and makes it that much worse.
Well, you figure you got where you live, you got a neighbor on each side of you. If it's not you, it's one of them. A third's a lot.
Sure.
$400 doesn't buy much anymore.
Oh, no. And in fact, there's a lot of argument out there that the $400, it's kind of a common thing that they survey every year, but $400 really in today's spending is more like $800. Really.
Even that isn't.
What was $400 10 years ago is more like $800 now. And that using that as a barometer isn't necessarily a very good barometer.
To me, that's still low as well.
Right.
Goodness.
But yeah, I think that it is a big challenge, and this is not a social class thing either. It's not about poor people, because there are folks living paycheck to paycheck are all along the spectrum of wealth. You can be making $150,000 a year and still be living paycheck to paycheck.
It's not what you make; it's what you spend.
Oh, absolutely, no question about it. The other thing I've got here is. In December, the total amount of U.S. credit card debt reached its highest level ever. It increased by 18.5% in year-over-year statistics and has reached now $930.6 billion. So you just think about across the gamut of society, it's just getting so overwhelming. It's getting bigger and bigger. And of course, inflation has affected that. The pandemic has affected it. There's a lot of factors for it. But they say the average credit card balance is now $5,800. And of course, a lot of folks have multiple credit cards. And that can really add up. And if you have a $5,800 credit card balance and you only make the minimum payment, it will take you 17 years to pay it off, and you'll pay more in finance charges than you borrowed to begin with.
Than you ever took.
It would be over $8,000 for the $5,000 that you borrowed. So, that's how using compound interest to go the wrong way
against you
is really bad.
Yeah.
If you can use compound interest, if you don't use debt and you put that money in a savings or a high yield savings at minimum, that money you can put to work so that you can create wealth over time, build your kid's college education fund, or get ready for retirement. All those kind of things that everyone wants to do, but if you're living paycheck to paycheck, it's almost impossible.
You'll never do it.
Right.
Because there's always something that's going to bite you.
So those are, there's just all these things are at play and affect people, and it can be overwhelming. And a lot of folks do get overwhelmed, and they just throw their hands up and just say, well, I'm going to muddle along and do the best I can.
Right.
In most cases, because they don't know that there's options and there's ways to strategically try to battle against it and do something about it.
Now, you don't give financial advice. You're not a financial advisor.
Well, the technical definition for a financial advisor gets into making investments, what kind of stocks, what kind of portfolio. Right. And the answer to your question is no, I don't do that. I can offer some general guidelines that Dave Ramsey recommends. But if someone asks me what to invest in, I will turn them over and refer to them to one or two folks that I know personally that I can count on, or that I have faith in that will give good advice.
Perfect.
But absolutely, that does not fall within my wheelhouse, other than just offering some very general suggestions.
But you can direct somebody to the right place.
Oh, absolutely.
There's
a lot
of
great resources in our community right here in Jackson, Banks County. There really are some dedicated folks that can help you in that area.
Good deal. Well, what else do we got? Do we wrap it up?
Well, I think just the general, just to give you an overall template for the way the Dave Ramsey plan works, is it's a 7-step baby plan. The first step, which I already mentioned, is stop what you're doing and just create a $1,000 emergency fund. Mm-hmm. And what that does is it just helps to relieve a little bit of anxiety, so that if that $400 or $800 emergency comes up, it can alleviate at least the stress, that you can at least handle something like that. It's not going to overwhelm you. So that's step one. Now you got to keep paying your bills, of course,
absolutely.
while you're doing that, the minimum payments, but get that emergency fund started. Then the next step is the big one, is just do everything to attack your debt. Make all your minimum payments, and then focus everything you can on what Dave Ramsey calls it the snowball approach. Is you take the smallest debt first, because we want to stack up a win. What's the quickest we can get to a win? And that first one is the easiest one. Is what's the smallest debt? Let's just say it's $500. Let's get that one knocked out. Take all of your extra resources and throw everything at it. Get that knocked out. You've got a win. And then you take what you were spending on that invoice or that bill, and then approach the next biggest.
Gotcha.
And then you just keep working it until you get all the way through.
I hear you.
And so it's just strategic, and it's psychologically. You want to stack wins so that you can keep that momentum going.
I was about to say that, the psychological advantage of it.
Absolutely.
So that's 2 of the 7.
So then, real quick, from there, the next focus is the fully funded emergency fund, which we have talked about.
Right.
So 3 to 6 months, you get that set, and that is where you reach financial peace. Even if I lose my job, I don't have to lose my mind. I've got some wiggle room. I can manage this, and it'll be okay. And then once you achieve that, then you start really rolling. The next step is retirement. The recommendation is put 15% of your income toward your retirement, preferably like a Roth IRA. Oh, yeah. If your employer offers something like that, absolutely take advantage of it, especially if they contribute.
If you can,
if they contribute money to it, you definitely want to take advantage of that. Then the kids' college fund, you work on that. And if you've achieved all those, then pay off your home early. And if you get to the point where you have absolutely no payments in life and no debt, then you are free to build wealth, make investments, and give like no one else. Give your money away.
It's good to be liquid.
Help people in the world. Give it to charity. That's living life abundantly. That's the way I look at it.
I'm with you on that. I'm with you.
Amen.
How do folks get a hold of you, Mark?
Well, they can reach me via phone, via email, via my website. It's Mark V Coaching on Facebook. I don't know, do you want to give out phone numbers?
Oh, we got an email.
I've got an email address, markvcoaching@gmail.com.
gmail.com.
That's real easy to remember. And I've got a website, very simple page, but it's a really long URL. You can get that off of my Facebook page. It's a little bit easier.
Well, we're also going to link it on our website.
Oh, that's cool.
To your page, so folks visit Northeast Georgia Business Radio and the Business Radio X website.
You are so smart.
I'm telling you. I just like clicking. We're making Mike do all the links. So,
there you go.
That's
Absolutely.
We've got to keep him busy back there. Mark, we appreciate you coming in, man.
Hey, it was exciting. I enjoyed it. Thank you very much, Tom.
Very, very awesome. You're giving people hope and folks that need it.
And the one thing I haven't mentioned is I don't charge a thing. This is a ministry for me. If I can help someone,
Really?
I'm there to do it. Yeah.
You might have led with that.
I probably should have.
I'm just
yes.
saying.
I need a marketing specialist to help me here.
We know.
Are you for hire?
We're always for hire.
There you go.
Anyway, as long as the benefits and the food is good. Hey, there's my music. That means I have to hurry up and
Thanks.
wrap up.
Take care.
Mark, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for another amazing episode of Northeast Georgia Business Radio. I'm your host, Tom Sheldon. We'll talk to you soon.